Ted Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont, to Eleanor Louise Cowell, 1924 to 2012, known as Louise. His father's identity remains officially unknown, with the birth certificate indicating a salesman and Air Force veteran named Lloyd Marshall as the father. Though other records list his father as unknown, Louise claimed to have been seduced by a war veteran named Jack Worthington, who was listed as Ted's father. In King County Sheriff's Office records, some family members speculated that Bundy's biological father might have been Louise's abusive father, Samuel Cowell, but no concrete evidence supported this theory. During the first 3 years of his life, Bundy lived with his maternal grandparents, Samuel 1898 to 1983, and Eleanor Cowell 1895 to 1971. In Philadelphia, to avoid the social stigma being born out of wedlock. Despite being raised as their son, Bundy eventually discovered the truth. He revealed to a girlfriend that a cousin showed him a copy of his birth certificate, after which he found the certificate himself. But it wasn't until biographer and Rule located the original birth record in Vermont in 1969 that he believed he had finally found his real mother. Bundy fondly described his grandparents in some interviews, but in 1987, he and other family members told lawyers that Samuel Cowell was a cruel tyrant who hated African Americans, Italians, Catholics, and Jews, beat his wife and family dog, and threw Louise's younger sister, Julia, down a flight of stairs for oversleeping. Sometimes Samuel would speak loudly to unseen presences, and at least once he flew into a violent rage when Bundy's paternity was brought up. Bundy described his grandmother as a depressed, timid, and obedient woman who occasionally exhibited disturbing behaviors. In 1950, Louise changed her surname from Cowell to Nelson and left Philadelphia to live with her cousins Alan and Jane Scott in Tacoma, Washington, taking Bundy with her in 1951. Louise met hospital cook Johnny Culpeper Bundy 19 to 1207 at Tacoma's First Methodist Church, and they married later that year. Johnny formally adopted Ted, and they had 4 children together. But Ted often complained to his girlfriend that Johnny wasn't his real father, and that he wasn't very smart or successful. During his senior year of high school, Bundy exhibited various disturbing behaviors. He talked about how he would wander around his neighborhood, rummaging through trash cans to find pictures of naked women, and admitted to immersing himself in detective magazines, crime novels, and true crime documentaries, especially those featuring images of dead or injured bodies, which deeply affected him. Bundy also spoke about his social life differently. When discussing Tacoma with different interviewers, he told Michaud and Ainsworth that he chose to be a loner as a teenager because he didn't understand interpersonal relationships and claimed he didn't know what people wanted from friendships. His high school classmates, however, told Rule that Bundy was like a big fish in a big pond and was well known and liked there. Downhill skiing was Bundy's only significant athletic hobby, which he pursued enthusiastically using stolen equipment and counterfeit lift tickets. While still in high school, Bundy was arrested at least twice on suspicion of theft and car theft by the time he turned 18. The details of these incidents were expunged from records in Washington after graduating from high school in 1965. Bundy attended Puget Sound University for a year before transferring to Washington University. In 1967, he began a romantic relationship with a classmate named Stephanie Brooks, which ended shortly. Thereafter, Bundy worked various jobs and volunteered for political campaigns. He also returned to university to pursue a degree in psychology, eventually returning to study law in the mid-1970s. Additionally, he engaged in a series of political and social activities. However, he experienced a complex and difficult period in his relationships, struggling to focus on his legal education during this time. This period coincided with the disappearance of young women and Bundy's failure to attend classes. Ted Bundy is a notorious serial killer, known for a series of disappearances and murders of young women in the United States during the early 1970s. While there is no definitive information on when Bundy began his killings, they are believed to have started in the late 1960s and continued into the 1970s. Bundy's first known murder occurred in 1974 in Washington state. During this time, young women, especially college students, began disappearing, with many of Bundy's victims fitting this profile. The crimes were particularly concentrated in and around Seattle. Bundy's crimes typically involved abduction, rape, torture, and murder of his victims. During the murders, Bundy would attack his victims using various methods and would sometimes dispose of their bodies by burning them or drowning them. He also dismembered some victims and concealed their remains. Many of Bundy's crimes were committed using his Volkswagen Beetle, which he used to approach young women hitchhiking, luring or forcing them into his car. Despite being linked to many of the crimes, Bundy was reluctant to admit to or share details about his murders with authorities. However, as his execution date approached, he confessed to numerous murders. Bundy's crimes shocked the public and garnered widespread attention. Despite his education in law and his respected position in society, he is considered one of the most infamous serial killers in United States history. On August 16, 1975, Ted Bundy was arrested by Utah Highway Patrol Officer Bob Hayward in Granger, a suburb of Salt Lake City. Hayward had observed Bundy roaming around a residential area in the early hours of the morning. Upon spotting the patrol car, Bundy fled the area high speed. Upon inspecting Bundy's Volkswagen Beetle, police officers noticed that the front passenger seat had been removed and placed in the rear seats. A search of the car revealed various suspicious items, including an ice pick, a ski mask, a second mask made from pantyhose, a crowbar, handcuffs, trash bags, a rope, and ice sacks, and other items initially presumed to be burglary tools. While Bundy explained the use of some items, he concealed the purpose of others. A search of the car revealed various suspicious items, including an ice pick, a ski mask, a second mask made from pantyhose, a crowbar, handcuffs, trash bags, a rope, and ice sacks, and other items initially presumed to be burglary tools. While Bundy explained the use of some items, he concealed the purpose of others. The Salt Lake City police kept Bundy under 24-hour surveillance, and Detective Jerry Thompson traveled to Seattle to interview Klopfer. Klopfer stated that she found unexplainable items in Bundy's home and apartment. The discovery of several strands of hair in Bundy's car trunk caught the attention of FBI technicians. These strands matched the hair of Karen Campbell, Melissa Smith, and Carol Derringe. Bundy was found guilty of the Derringe kidnapping case and sentenced to 15 years in the Utah State Prison. However, Colorado authorities later accused Bundy of the murder of Karen Campbell and sought his extradition to Colorado. After resisting, Bundy was eventually transferred to Colorado. Throughout this process, evidence linking Bundy to the murders was collected, and as the cases progressed, the charges against him increased. Specifically, the strands of hair found in Bundy's car and Klopfer's testimonies contributed to the accumulation of evidence indicating his guilt. In June 1977, Ted Bundy was transferred from the Glenwood Springs prison to the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen for a preliminary hearing. However, he escaped by jumping out of the window of the courthouse and went into hiding in the mountainous area. During his escape, he stole food, clothing, and a rifle from a hunter's cabin. He then entered a camper near Maroon Lake and later headed towards Aspen. However, he was caught after stealing a car and wandering near the town. Bundy's capture led to the presentation of maps and items found in the camper as incriminating evidence by the prosecutors. After being arrested, he was constantly shackled and sent back to prison. However, not wanting to stay in prison, Bundy devised a new escape plan. He prepared for the escape by making a hole in his cell and collaborating with other inmates. The court granted the request to change the trial venue and ordered jurors to be called to Colorado Springs. However, during this time, Bundy managed to escape from prison and fled to Chicago. These events provide a detailed picture of Bundy's attempted prison escapes, the events during his escape, and how the trial was affected. Bundy was an unusually organized and calculated criminal who utilized comprehensive law enforcement methodologies to evade detection and capture warriors. The crime scenes were spread across wide geographical areas, with the number of victims reaching at least 20 before multiple. Investigators realized they were hunting the same man. His methods of assault, trauma, and strangulation were relatively quiet and could be carried out with ordinary household items. Bundy meticulously researched and sought out safe locations to capture and dispose of his victims, displaying an exceptional ability to minimize physical evidence. One significant obstacle for law enforcement was Bundy's chameleon-like ability to alter his appearance as he pleased. He often looked different in almost every photograph, frustrating attempts to identify him. Bundy was aware of this unusual trait and used subtle changes in facial hair or hairstyle to his advantage. He concealed his distinctive birthmark on his neck with turtleneck shirts and sweaters. Even the identification of his Volkswagen Beetle was challenging. as witnesses described its color in various ways. According to FBI experts, Bundy's modus operandi evolved over time with increasing organization and intellect, typical of serial killers. Initially, he would break into homes late at night and violently attack sleeping victims with a blunt weapon. As his methodology progressed, Bundy became more organized in his approach, often using various ruses to lure victims closer to his vehicle, where he had positioned weapons beforehand. He would often feign injuries or pose as an authority figure to gain victims' trust before incapacitating and restraining them. Bundy's known victims were all young white women, mostly from middle-class backgrounds, age between 15 and 25, and many were college students. He appeared not to have approached anyone he had previously met. There was speculation that his hostility towards his first girlfriend triggered a long-lasting anger, leading him to target victims resembling her. However, Bundy rejected this hypothesis, stating that his victims were chosen based on youth and attractiveness. After Bundy's execution, author and Rule expressed disbelief the sympathy expressed for him by many young women, emphasizing that they were mourning for a shadowy figure who had deceived them. After a change of venue, Bundy was tried for the Chi Omega murders and assaults in June 1979 in Miami. The trial, attended by 250 reporters from 5 continents, was televised for the first time in the United States despite having 5 appointed attorneys. Bundy conducted much of his own defense prior to the trial. A pretrial defense agreement was made for Bundy to be found guilty of the murders of Levy Bowman and Leach in exchange for a 75-year prison sentence. However, Bundy ultimately rejected the agreement at the last minute. Witnesses and physical evidence presented during the trial led to Bundy's conviction and sentencing to death by electric chair. Following this, Bundy confessed to various murders and abduction incidents in detail. He gave a final interview before his execution day and was executed by electrocution with 2,000 volts of electricity. After his death, his body was cremated and his ashes were distributed in a mountainous area in the state of Washington. Don't forget to like and comment the video for all and more. I wish you a horrible day.